Hello there, fellow gardeners and plant lovers. Ever wonder why your spring garden doesn't quite live up to your dreams? The problem might just be the mistakes you're making in the fall. That's right. The work you do in autumn is what sets the stage for a bountiful harvest and vibrant blooms next year. And did you know that some of these mistakes can actually kill your plants, undoing all your hard work from the summer? In this video, we're not just revealing the 7 most costly fall gardening blunders. We're also showing you how to turn them into triumphs. Get ready to learn some surprising secrets that will completely transform your garden. But first, let us know in the comments, what do you think is the single most important task to do in the garden each fall? Fall is so much more than just a time for harvesting crops and saying goodbye to the warmth. For a gardener, it's a critical period that lays the groundwork for the entire season to come. Think of your garden as a sleeping giant, preparing for a long winter hibernation. And just like any sleeping creature, it needs the right care and preparation to wake up full of strength and energy. Many people think that after the final harvest, they can just relax and wait for spring. But that's the biggest misconception of all. Right now is when your plants are storing up nutrients, forming next year's buds, and bracing for the cold temperatures. Preparing your garden properly for winter isn't just about survival. It's the key to ensuring an abundance of flowers and fruit next year. So, let's find out. Which of your actions might be doing more harm than good? Alright, let's dive into the first and perhaps most common mistake: pruning at the wrong time or in the wrong way. Many gardeners grab their shears as soon as the leaves drop, but for a lot of plants, this can be a fatal move. Improper pruning in the fall can weaken a plant, leaving it vulnerable to frost and disease. It can also trigger a spurt of new growth that won't have time to harden off before winter. Think of it this way. Instead of preparing for its winter dormancy, the plant is forced to waste energy healing fresh cuts. It's like injuring a soldier right before a battle. Is that really going to help him survive? To avoid this, you need to know which plants can be pruned in the fall and which are best left until spring. For example, fruit trees require a very specific approach, while some ornamental shrubs should never be pruned in autumn at all. Picture this on screen. An animation shows a pair of pruning shears next to a stem, pointing out the right place to cut and the wrong one. Let's move on to the second common mistake: not cleaning up fallen leaves. You might think, what's the big deal? Leaves are natural fertilizer. Well, yes and no. While it's true that fallen leaves can be a source of nutrients, they also create the perfect winter hideout for pests and diseases. Imagine leaving a pile of leaves on your lawn. All winter long, slugs, weevils, and fungal spores are safely sheltering from the cold right underneath. Come spring, that entire army of pests will be ready to feast on your new growth. On top of that, a thick blanket of leaves can smother your lawn, causing it to rot. So, before you decide to let nature take its course, consider if you're actually doing your garden more harm than good. So what's the solution? Always clear the leaves off your lawn and from around your plants, especially if you saw any signs of disease during the summer. A clean garden is a healthy garden. Show a close-up of a leaf with small insects hiding underneath. A third common mistake, and one that many gardeners underestimate, is improper autumn watering, either not enough or far too much. You might think, why water before winter? The plants are dormant, right? Well, that's not quite the whole story. Before the cold really sets in, plants need a deep, recharging soak. This helps them store moisture in their tissues to better survive the frost, which is especially critical if a winter with little snow is expected. Imagine setting off on a long journey with no water. That's pretty much how a plant feels without this final autumn drink. However, it's just as important not to overdo it. Too much moisture can lead to root rot, particularly in heavy clay soils. A root system sitting in waterlogged soil can't get oxygen, and when winter arrives, that excess water will freeze solid, creating an ice block that suffocates and damages the roots. So, as with most things, balance is key. Check your soil's moisture level, and if it's dry, give your trees and shrubs a generous, deep watering. You can show 2 jars of water on screen, one with too little, one with too much, and the plants sitting in each. The fourth mistake that can cost you your harvest is skipping the fall feeding. Many gardeners think fertilizer is only for the spring and summer, during the peak growing season. But in the fall, your plants need nutrients too, just a different kind. This is when they crave potassium and phosphorus. These key nutrients help strengthen the root system, boost their hardiness for the winter, and set the flower buds for next year. Think of it this way. Would you send a child to bed without dinner? Would they sleep well and wake up full of energy? Of course not. It's the exact same for your plants. They need their winter meal. On the other hand, you'll want to avoid nitrogen-based fertilizers. They encourage a rush of new tender growth that simply won't have time to prepare for the cold and will be killed by the first frost. A proper fall feeding is a direct investment in the health and bounty of your garden for the year to come. The fifth mistake many new gardeners make is covering their plants too early. The urge to protect your delicate plants from the first frost is understandable, but covering them too soon can do more harm than good. Under the covering, plants can begin to rot, especially if the weather is still relatively warm and humid. Imagine putting on a heavy winter coat on a mild autumn day. You'd get hot and uncomfortable. The exact same thing happens to your plants. They start to suffocate from the lack of air circulation, which creates the perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases. It's best to wait for consistent freezing temperatures to set in before you start covering them, and be sure to use breathable materials that allow for good ventilation. A cover should shield a plant from harsh wind and sudden temperature swings, not create a greenhouse. Show on screen how a plant is suffocating under a cover that is too thick and has been put on too early. The sixth mistake that can doom your trees and shrubs is failing to protect them from rodents. In winter, when food is scarce, hungry hares, mice, and rats will happily feast on the bark of young trees. Think of it like leaving a sweet treat out in the woods. It will instantly attract every forest creature around. It's the same story with your plants. And bark that's been chewed away is more than just an eyesore. It's an open wound, leaving the plant vulnerable to infection. It also disrupts the flow of sap, which can ultimately kill the tree entirely. To shield the trunks, use special mesh guards, tree wraps, or even tie spruce branches around them. It's also crucial to clean up any fallen fruit and plant debris that might attract them. Don't forget about poison bait for mice, but always place it where pets and other wildlife can't get to it. On screen, we see rodents gnawing on a tree's bark, followed by a demonstration of these protective methods. The seventh mistake, and perhaps one of the most deceptive, is failing to properly prepare your soil for the next season. Many people simply turn over their garden beds and leave them until spring, thinking that's enough. But that's a huge missed opportunity. Fall is the perfect time to work in organic fertilizers, like compost or well-rotted manure, and to plant cover crops. Imagine trying to build a strong house without laying a foundation. Sooner or later, it's going to collapse. It's the exact same principle with your soil. It needs to be fed and restored. Adding organic matter in the fall improves the soil structure, making it more fertile and allowing it to breathe. And cover crops are like a green fertilizer. They not only enrich the soil with nitrogen, but also suppress weed growth. Don't leave your soil hungry and unprotected over the winter. Give it everything it needs now, so it can reward you with a bountiful harvest in the spring. Show a diagram on screen. Illustrate how organic fertilizers enrich the soil and how cover crops crowd out weeds. Now, let's talk about watering. There's a common myth among gardeners that plants don't need water in the fall because they're getting ready for winter. This is a mistake that could cost your trees and shrubs their lives. What's truly crucial is a deep, pre-winter watering. Picture this. When soil is dry, it freezes solid, leaving the roots completely vulnerable to the frost. But water in the soil actually releases a small amount of heat as it freezes, which helps insulate the root system and keep it from dying. Think of it as a protective blanket for the roots, but be mindful of the timing. You need to water well before the ground freezes hard, so the moisture has time to soak deep into the soil. Of course, overwatering is also a risk, as it can lead to root rot. So, if you've had a dry autumn, make sure to give your fruit trees and bushes a long, deep drink. You can almost see the water seeping into the earth surrounding the roots and shielding them from the bitter cold to come. Another critical mistake is failing to rotate your crops. If you plant the same thing in the same spot, year after year, it depletes the soil and leads to a buildup of diseases and pests. Imagine eating the exact same meal every single day. Eventually, your body would be completely worn out. Well, the same thing happens to your soil. That's why planning next year's garden in the fall isn't just a whim. It's a science-backed necessity. Different plants use up different nutrients and are vulnerable to different pests and diseases. By rotating where you plant your vegetables, you give the soil a chance to rest and recover, preventing harmful pathogens from building up. It also helps you manage weeds that tend to thrive alongside certain crops. So, keep a garden journal and plan your layout in advance to avoid any nasty surprises. Here's a look at a sample rotation plan, with different crops assigned to different beds. The 10th mistake, which is often overlooked, is skipping the autumn garden cleanup. After you've harvested everything, disease pathogens and pest larvae can remain on the plants and in the soil. Imagine this. You've just finished a feast but haven't cleared the table. Sooner or later, you'll get flies and cockroaches. The exact same thing happens in your garden. Treating your trees and shrubs in the fall with specialised products is a crucial step in preventing disease. This might involve spraying with a Bordeaux mixture or other fungicides to destroy fungal spores and bacteria. Also, don't forget to whitewash the trunks of your fruit trees. This protects the bark not only from winter sun scald and frost cracks, but also from pests that might be hiding in the crevices. A clean garden that's been treated in the fall is far less prone to diseases come springtime. On screen, a close-up of a tree being sprayed, followed by a shot of a tree trunk being whitewashed. The 11th mistake that can lead to disappointment come spring is not storing your garden tools properly. Your shovels, rakes and pruners all need to be prepped for winter. Think about it. What would happen if you left your car out in the rain and snow all winter instead of in a garage? It would get rusty, worn out, and eventually break down. Well, the same thing will happen to your garden tools. Taking the time to clean, sharpen, and oil your tools in the fall extends their lifespan and saves you money. After all, it's much more enjoyable to start the spring season with sharp, clean equipment than to struggle with tools that are rusty and dull. And don't forget about the storage location. It needs to be a dry place, protected from moisture. Smaller tools can be kept in boxes or on shelves, while larger ones can be hung on the wall. On screen, show dirty, rusty tools next to clean, oiled and sharpened ones. The 12th mistake that can lead to a lot of extra trouble is forgetting to winterize your water system and hoses. Many gardeners forget to drain the water from all the hoses and spigots left outside. Just imagine what happens. The water freezes, expands and bursts the pipes. Come spring, you'll be faced with a nasty surprise in the form of a flood and costly repairs. But this is so easy to avoid. Before the first hard freeze sets in, make sure you drain the water from all your outdoor faucets, hoses, irrigation systems and pumps. Coil your hoses up neatly and store them in a dry, warm place. If you have a drip irrigation system, it also needs to be completely cleared of water and, if necessary, disassembled. This simple step will save you time, money and a lot of stress in the spring. Here you can see the water being drained from the hose, which is then coiled neatly and put away for storage. Here's a 13th mistake that even seasoned gardeners make: not cleaning up their garden beds at the end of the season. You might think, why not let it all decompose and turn into natural fertilizer? But in reality, you're creating the perfect winter hideout for pests and a breeding ground for diseases. Picture this: your tomato, pepper or cabbage patches are still covered with old dead plants. Tucked away in that debris are the spores of late blight and powdery mildew, along with the larvae of cabbage moths and countless other pests. Come spring, they'll be ready and waiting to feast on your new seedlings. That's why it's absolutely essential to clear away all that plant debris. If any plants were diseased, it's best to burn them or dispose of them off-site to prevent the infection from spreading. Healthy leftovers can go into your compost pile, but only if you are 100% sure they are disease-free. A clean garden is the first step to a bountiful harvest next season. On screen, show a messy garden bed covered in rotting plants, then show a tidy, cleared garden bed. The 14th mistake that can ruin your spring blooms is covering your bulbs improperly or at the wrong time. Tulips, daffodils and hyacinths. These beauties need protection, but timing is everything. Imagine covering them too early while the ground is still warm. They'll start to sprout, only to be hit by a sudden frost. On the other hand, if you don't cover them at all, they might simply freeze. The sweet spot is to wait for the first steady frosts, once the top layer of soil is frozen. That's the perfect time to add a protective layer. You can use fallen leaves, evergreen boughs, straw, or special garden fabrics. The goal is to create an air pocket that insulates the bulbs from drastic temperature swings and deep freezes. It's also crucial that the cover isn't packed too tightly, or the bulbs could rot from trapped moisture. Show the bulbs being covered with a layer of leaves or evergreen boughs. Mistake number 15, and one that leads to a lot of frustration, is neglecting to mulch. Many see mulch as just a decorative touch for flower beds, but it's actually a powerful tool for protecting your plants and improving the soil. Think about it. Bare soil quickly loses moisture, overheats in the summer, and freezes solid in the winter. Mulch, on the other hand, is like a blanket for your soil. It locks in moisture, regulates temperature, suppresses weeds, and as it slowly decomposes, it enriches the soil with organic matter. Mulching is especially important in the fall. A layer of mulch protects the roots from freezing, which is crucial for young seedlings and tender plants. You can use materials like sawdust, bark, straw, fallen leaves, or compost. But be careful. Don't pile the mulch right up against the stems of your trees and shrubs, as this can cause them to rot. Show a thick layer of mulch covering the soil around a plant. The 16th mistake that can lead to springtime problems is neglecting to whitewash your trees in the fall. Many think this is purely a cosmetic step, but it actually serves a crucial practical purpose. Picture this. In winter, the sun reflects off the snow and intensely heats the dark tree trunks, especially on their southern side. Then at night, the temperature plummets. These extreme temperature swings cause frost cracks in the bark, which create an entry point for pests and diseases. The light colour of the whitewash, however, reflects the sun's rays and prevents the trunk from overheating. What's more, the lime in the whitewash mix has disinfectant properties and helps deter pests. It's best to apply it on a dry day in the fall, so it has plenty of time to dry before the rains begin. Show on screen how the sun heats up a dark trunk and how the whitewash reflects the rays. The 17th mistake that can harm your flower beds is not preparing your perennials properly for winter. Many gardeners just leave them as they are, hoping they'll fend for themselves. But that's not always the case. Think about it. Some perennials, like irises, hostas, and daylilies, need to be cut back after they finish blooming. This helps prevent the spread of disease and allows them to survive the winter better. Meanwhile, others, like roses or clematis, require more substantial cover. Autumn care for perennials involves removing spent blooms, dead leaves, and any diseased parts of the plant. Then, depending on the variety, you either add a layer of mulch or cover them with protective material. It's crucial that any cover is breathable to prevent rot. Preparing your perennials correctly will set them up for a spectacular display of blooms next year. On screen, you can see various perennials, and we're showing which parts to trim and how to cover them. Mistake number 18, and a major reason people lose plants, is ignoring poor drainage. During the heavy rains of fall and the spring snow melt, many gardens can become completely waterlogged. Picture this. Your plants are sitting in a swamp. The roots can't get any oxygen, causing them to rot and freeze over the winter. This is especially critical for plants that hate having wet feet, like roses, clematis, and certain fruit trees. If you know your yard has drainage issues, autumn is the perfect time to address them. You can dig drainage channels, install drain pipes, or simply amend your soil with sand and organic matter to improve its structure. You can also build raised beds or create small mounds for plants that are particularly sensitive to too much moisture. Proper drainage is the key to a healthy root system and is crucial for your plant's winter survival. Show on screen how water stands in the soil and how a drainage system channels it away. The 19th mistake that could cost you your harvest is neglecting your berry bushes in the fall. Raspberries, currants and gooseberries all require special preparation for winter. Imagine just leaving your bushes as they are, only to find in the spring that they're broken by heavy snow riddled with disease or weakened by pests. But this is easy to avoid. Autumn care includes a clean-up pruning. That means removing any old, diseased or damaged canes. This improves air circulation, prevents diseases from spreading, and encourages the growth of new, fruit-bearing canes. It's also important to feed your bushes with potassium and phosphorus fertilizers, and, if needed, give them a final, deep watering before the ground freezes. Covering your berry bushes usually isn't necessary, but for raspberries you can gently bend the canes to the ground. This helps the snow cover them, acting as a natural insulator. Show how to prune the old raspberry canes and how to bend them down to the ground. And finally, our 20th and perhaps biggest mistake, putting everything off until later, or more specifically, until spring. It's easy to think, oh, what's the point of working in the garden now? It's getting cold anyway. But that is a huge mistake. Think about it. You could solve so many problems right now, saving yourself time and energy come spring. But instead, you leave it all for later. Fall isn't the end of the gardening season. It's the time for preparation. It's when you lay the groundwork for the year ahead. It's your chance to get rid of pests, enrich the soil, prune your plants, and protect the more delicate ones from the cold. Do all of this in the fall, and your garden will wake up in the spring healthy, strong, and ready to thrive. And all that's left for you to do is enjoy its beauty and bounty. Don't miss this opportunity. Plan your fall tasks, follow our tips, and your garden will reward you abundantly. And there you have it, 7 sneaky autumn mistakes that can trip up any gardener. From improper pruning to forgetting about mulch and pest control, each one can do serious damage to your garden. But now, you're equipped to avoid them and turn your fall prep into a foundation for future success. Remember, autumn isn't the end. It's the start of a new cycle, a time to invest in your garden's health and productivity. Proper care for your plants, soil and tools now will save you from headaches later and reward you with abundant harvests and beautiful blooms next year. Your garden is a living thing, and it's counting on your care. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this video helpful. If you have your own tried and true fall gardening secrets, or just want to share your experience, please drop a comment below. What's the most important autumn task in your garden? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Until next time, happy gardening!